This video contains disturbing and violent content. Viewer discretion advised.
What makes a video game boss so disturbing? Is it that it leaves us players reeling from our encounter? Is it its gruesome, malformed appearance? Or something even more sinister?
Many take on the physical aspects of a twisted version of the human form, mirroring us as a flawed species through their appearance and actions. Here, for you, are the top 50 disturbing bosses in games.
Scarface, Smash TV. 90s arcade kids will remember fighting this boss from the carnage-filled title Smash TV. Scarface is the nastiest looking antagonist in the whole game. Powerful, creepy, and grotesque. He is a head encased in a protective circular casing with his brain visibly poking out the top. It can take up a lot of room around the arena, easily trapping the player, and only gets faster the further into the battle you go. To quickly take Scarface out, focus on destroying the armor plating before maintaining continuous fire on the head. While dodging Scarface fireball volley attacks, the damage you inflict is shown by the amount of bruises and lacerations on its face. Finally, its skin falls off, and you see its skeleton underneath. As you continue to attack the armored skull, the bone becomes brittle and shatters when defeated.
Gofer, Gradius 2. In a game where you normally blast alien ships and multicolored orbs, this boss literally comes out of nowhere. Gofer is a cybernetic bioweapon that became a staple in the Gradius series because of his alarming appearance. Although an easy boss to defeat, the player would need to attack the tentacles attached to his head while avoiding the projectiles that shoot from its mouth. Gofer's appearance grew less disturbing and creepy as more Gradius games were released.
First boss, Cyberlip. A typical run-and-gun game in the same vein as Contra, Cyberlip's bosses are usually mechanical or robotic, but this boss represents the backstory of the game. A frightening android experiment with a weirdly phallic appearance, this boss churns your stomach until the moment you complete the level. Another design that makes us question, just how did this boss get through the game sensors back then?
Dorothy, Galerians. An AI bent on becoming the god of her own human experiments that blindly obey her. Dorothy is a boss with a backstory as unsettling as her appearance. With an eyeball that emerges from her mouth, cables for hair that viciously whip the player, and flesh that looks rotted and coarse. The only thing that could add to her appearance would be the ability to actually see her during the boss fight. Due to the poor foresight of the professors that created her, they gave Dorothy a sentient mind. And as she began to question her own destiny, they taught her about the concept of God. She learned that she must serve her creator, but she soon realized that her power was greater than her creator, and that she too could become God. A classic example of artificial intelligence gone mad. Power without a heart is always evil.
Mother, Turok 2, Seeds of Evil. Turok is known for dinosaurs and big guns, but this boss is something more ancient and sinister than your average T-Rex. Mother is a massive, blubbery cyclops with a behind resembling an arachnid's abdomen. She spawns small creatures from her body and sends them to attack you. Each arm separates into 3 tentacles after being blown off, using them to whip the player into submission and even more maneuvering herself around the arena. These are her weak points, as the rest of her is practically invulnerable. Once finally destroyed, spider-like legs emerge from her abdomen. She forgoes the ranged battle to instead get up close and personal with you, attacking with her arm stumps. When enough damage is inflicted upon her, Mother flees the scene. She is the only boss that is never killed in the Turok series, and it's unclear what happens to her after escaping her fate.
Andrei Ulmeyda, Killer 7. After being mutated by the Heaven Smile genes, Andrei becomes a mangled mass of coagulated blood, which has taken over every fibre of his being. His only weak spot is his hair, his only connection to his now transmuted appearance and psyche. And it must be destroyed in order to allow him a small amount of absolution for his deeds. The boss battle itself is fairly simple and can be won quite easily. Matt Helms, No More Heroes 2. A mix of American and Japanese horror tropes. Matt Helms is an undead pyromaniac who made a deal with the devil to kill his parents, who abandoned him to die in a house fire. Matt's incessant giggling and childish screams make the fight even more harrowing. A supernatural assassin who seems to have 2 different manifestations, a young, blood-soaked boy and an overweight masked man with a flame-throwing axe. In battle, Matt Helms wields a massive flamethrower with a huge axe-like blade attached to the barrel. He mainly uses slow, powerful swings of his weapon, supplemented with blasts of flame and Molotov cocktails. His hulking frame and childlike demeanor are stripped away at the end of the fight, and Travis continues on with his mission.
Gurdy, Binding of Isaac. Gurdy is a boss constructed out of a mixture of organs and arteries, with a brown appendage on her side. Her face also moves around her body as the battle progresses, appearing all over her massive form. She looks as though she is constantly laughing and is missing her left eye. Gurdy does not move from her position in the exact middle of the room she is found in. She has quite a high level of health as she is immobile, and it is relatively easy to avoid her moveset. However, don't take this fight for granted. Sometimes, her attacks may sneak up on you.
Clotho, God of War 2. Clotho is the youngest of the 3 Fates, and the last that Kratos must face in battle. She is a towering figure with sagging flesh and breasts hanging from her body, as well as multiple arms. She is presumably immobile from the waist down, and unable to support her immense weight. Clotho desperately tries to warn Kratos of the dangers of affecting the threads of time, but he takes no heed in order to complete his quest. Clotho's only means of attacking the player are her many arms. She does not try to stop him in any other way, despite potentially having the ability to utilize energy balls like the other Fates, or even the ability to alter time. However, it is possible that her years of immobility and neglect of her powers have caused her to become weak. Kratos may attack her by using his blade attacks. In the end, Clotho meets her demise when she has her head sliced into by the enormous pendulum blade that hangs at the back of the stage. Female Tripod, Dead Space 2. The tripods of Dead Space are made from multiple corpses and appear as two forms, male and female, with the latter being more horrific. Encountered in the Church of Unitology, the female tripod leaps at the player and grabs them off the floor. She will then try to cut you with her bladed tongue. A child's body can be made out growing from her drag tentacle protruding from her mouth. The child's pulsing yellow abdomen acts as the weak point of this boss, but is only reachable now that you're at its mercy. A few shots of the sap will render the tongue harmless, and a few more shots will kill the creature. However, should you be unsuccessful in dodging her attacks, look forward to watching yourself get sliced up, thrown around, and finally impaled.
Deerhaunter, Timesplitters, Future Perfect. As you fight your way through the ruined mansion with Jobeth Casey, Cortez will stumble upon a dining hall where a large, demented deer's head hangs on the wall, its teeth bared and eyes milky white. After fighting off a horde of zombies, the wall will shudder and break, revealing the freshly grown flayed muscle and bone of the Deerhaunter's body. It lets out a terrifying roar before the horrific, experimental side effects engages the player with ramming speed. It slashes at the player with menacing hooks and continuously assaults you with its sharp antlers. Movement is key in defeating this boss, and even once it's dead, you will still be wary of its return.
I'm gonna need therapy after this.
Killabilly, Lolipop Chainsaw. His killer Elvis looks, with the pompadour hair, high-collared jacket, and cool sunglasses accompany his 5-star difficulty rating. As expected of a zombie at the age of 666, Killabilly is quite clearly morbidly obese, not that it really matters, as he has the face of a road map. Despite these disadvantages, he has a wide variety of attacks. Able to pick up the player and flick them, slam his clawed hands, spew dangerous projectiles, shoot lasers from his eyes, summon and control classic American cars, flop his tongue out onto the arena, and guitar swing minions onto the arena. And this fight ain't over until the fat rock star has a hole blasted through his head. Giant Creep, F.E.A.R. 3. Harlan Wade's obsession with creating and obtaining the power of a psychic commander inspired him to torture and experiment on Paxton Fattel and Point Man. Perhaps it was his proximity to them for so many years, Alma's great burst of psychic power, or a combination of the two, that summoned the Creep. A skeletal, fleshy creature created from the manifested memories of Harlan Wade. His presence is felt throughout the game, but the final appearance is most notable. He is encountered in the Nightmare World, realm of the Creep. It towers above the arena, and due to its size, both its smash attack and fire breath deal heavy damage. It can also summon replica soldiers to distract the player whilst it builds energy for the next assault. Only when it opens its mouth, which in itself is big enough to swallow both brothers whole, will expose its weak spot, a shining cluster of red light. As the Creep is injured, its horrific form shatters in a fit of unrelenting pain. The Creep tears its head apart, revealing Harlan Wade's face briefly before being engulfed by eternal light.
ultimate evil, Splatterhouse 2. After saving Jennifer from the new mansion and escaping the lake monster, it appears Rick and his love are in the clear as they trek through the forest. But a dark haze descends and ultimate evil appears. Its mass is made of warped humanoid and canine faces, seemingly in the shape of a heart. It launches independently moving heads from its body to attack the player. You must fight your way through the swarm to hit the main body. After multiple strikes, it will drop heads from above in an attempt to further avoid you. Hit it enough, and the mass will pop, revealing the winged demon within. It is faster than the others, swooping down at you from above. It can easily whittle down your health so close to victory. Should you defeat it, the mansion will disappear into the lake, and Rick and Jennifer can finally live in peace.
Mystery Boss, Low G-Man. The Mystery Boss is the ultimate encounter at the conclusion of Low G-Man. After traversing down a path bordered by strange blue veins, you will encounter a floating mass hovering in the air. This is the Mystery Boss. Its origins unknown. Its identity, well, a mystery. It could be a single creature, or maybe some kind of vessel. But no matter what, it is hostile, and the commander of all enemy forces up to this point. Many of its attacks are easily avoided. Brain-like blobs on its exterior excrete slow-moving orbs, and its legs move back and forth, defending its green eye. Destroy all of these to summon the final obstacle. A green humanoid figure that strafes backwards and forwards along the top of the Mystery Boss, flinging burning balls of energy at you with every appearance. Once again, these attacks are easy to avoid, as with many of the bosses on this list. Upon its defeat, the Mystery Boss explodes.
Hell Chaos, Splatterhouse 1988. Hell Chaos is a Stage 7's final boss of the 1988 arcade game Splatterhouse. The main antagonist rises from its own grave, revealing its stretched, deformed head. You must attack his face, whilst avoiding falling rocks and the two giant rotting hands that attempt to grab you. When defeated, the ghostly afterimage of a face flickers and combusts, concluding the game. Although there are theories as to the origins of Hell Chaos, the most common being as a result of Dr. West's experimentations, none can be confirmed as characters in the story vary from arcade to console versions. The fight itself is very easy, and the fandom have comically dubbed this boss Captain Mozzarella due to the pizza-like features of his face.
Nightmare, Metroid Fusion. A mixture of organic and mechanical components, Nightmare was created purely for military purposes. It possesses immense strength and looks somewhat like an enormous metal chrysalis. It has one weak spot, the pulsating gravity manipulator on what seems to be its stomach. Samus must shoot this while deftly avoiding the oncoming laser attacks from Nightmare. As it is worn down in battle, it enters its second phase. Nightmare uses the manipulator to increase gravity, disadvantaging Samus so she can't jump, meaning that the player has to get up close and personal with missile attacks, or use the plasma beam. Nightmare begins to live up to its name and become truly grotesque as green liquid begins to pour from its body, and it sways in a snake-like manner. Eventually, Samus destroys Nightmare's face armor and the manipulator, restoring gravity to the area. In its third phase, Nightmare begins to fly sporadically around the stage and shoot lasers at will. Samus must attack the now bare face by jumping and using the ladder in the room to retaliate and avoid getting hit. Eventually, the player defeats Nightmare, allowing Samus to consume its Corex.
Cerberus, Dante's Inferno. Originally from Greek mythology, the guardian of gluttony, the third circle of hell, Cerberus is truly a sight to behold. A three-headed monster emerges from an enormous humanoid body trapped in the muck of hell. One large maw and four smaller mouths for eyes make up each head. These allow it to devour anything in its path and regurgitate the souls of the damned and spit them at Dante as overchewed globs. To defeat this beast, you must decapitate the two outermost heads that lunge forward and try to bite you. You can use crusted over puss geysers to burn the heads into submission and slicing them off with a scythe. When facing the final head, Cerberus fools you into getting too close and eating you whole, but that won't stop a warrior like you for long.
Leviathan. Dead Space. As you work your way through the food storage facility of the USG Ishimura, you will eventually happen upon the Leviathan. Like a disease, this giant formless necromorph latched itself onto the ship and began spreading throughout the deck, contaminating the air and blocking your advance. It awakens to your presence and begins attacking you with its three large tentacles that can be dodged if you are skilled at maneuvering through a zero-gravity environment. Each tentacle has an obvious weak spot, a gelatinous yellow sac, but they can be dangerous as they can slam the tunnel, and you, if you don't move fast enough. Severing them from its body reveals an open maw at the mass's center that spits explosive waste. Use kinesis to hurl the waste balls back into the opening to damage the core for an easy victory. Repeat this several times to defeat it and put an end to its toxic air production. At over 10 kilotons, this is one of the heaviest bosses on this list, and assuming human organic tissue make up its entire mass, a total of about 169,492 people of average weight were used to make it.
Neo ExDeath. Final Fantasy V. ExDeath's pursuit to control the power of the void leads him down a path where he is corrupted by the very power he seeks. Consumed in its tree form, Final Fantasy V's main antagonist becomes Neo ExDeath, a combined mass of demon-shaped man riding above three female figures, two eternal hounds, the horned face of a horrific beast, and three skeletal figures beneath a golden serpent's head. He attacks the player's party with incredible speed and power, but for the more damaging of his moves, signs of preparation can be seen warning you to get your team and the Grand Cross. Signs of preparation can be seen warning you to get ready for a massive hit. These moves are Almagist, an elemental spell that afflicts sap upon your team, and Grand Cross, which brings multiple negative effects to the party. For any chance of survival, defeat the 4 sections of Neo ExDeath that deal more damage to you over the sections that are physically weaker and easily destroyed. When down to its last living section, Neo ExDeath will slowly rely on its powerful meteor attack until either it or the player are defeated. Before he is able to erase the universe from existence, the Light Warriors overcome him, and, like his physical form, ExDeath's dream of wielding great power dissolve away into nothingness.
Queen of the Underworld, Bloodrayne. Due to her immense size alone, the Queen of the Underworld is renowned as the most powerful Marasrak of them all. She is encountered where the voodoo priestess Marasa performed a summoning ritual to call her out of her domain. Take care also, as the Queen of the Underworld births smaller incarnations of the Marasrak to aid in defending her. Many of the player's attacks and abilities do little to no damage to her as she stands, meaning you must attempt to hack her limbs off one by one in order to defeat her. They will continue to regenerate after a time, but utilizing hit and run tactics will allow you to slowly bring her down.
Patriarch, Killing Floor 2. The Patriarch is one of the final bosses in Killing Floor 2. His appearance is vastly different compared to the first game. He no longer has any hair on his head. His glasses have seemingly disappeared, and his eye is no longer bulbous and bloodshot, but rather they are both grizzled into a near reptilian standard. His flesh has been mutated to a sticky green color, and looks coarse and covered in green pustules. His chest tentacle, which is rumored to contain his heart, is hardened into a claw-like protrusion which can attack the player if they get too close. His arm is covered in the pustules as well as several tendrils which only act as his other weak spot besides his chest tentacle. When fighting this boss, it is recommended to stay away from melee attacks and focus on trying to stun him with explosives and critical hits. Players should not stand close together, as he will try and use his mortar attack to kill all of them at once and end the fight quickly.
Broodmother, Dragon Age Origins. After being infected by the taint, females will desire the taste of flesh, and upon ingesting sufficient quantities, become the Broodmother, a putrid, overflowing mass of flailing blubber. She spews toxic slime that damages attackers, and berates intruders with her 4 tentacles that can use the ooze the chamber is coated in to move around the room. If damaged, they will retreat in order to heal, giving the player a chance to attack the boss's hideous form. But be warned, the queen will summon her minions, dark-spawned shrieks, to flank your party from behind, trapping you in between. They are her children, determined by her elven race and able to spawn as many as 50 in single gestation. As the fight continues, each obstacle becomes tougher and inflicts even more damage. When defeated, you discover that the true horror lies not in her appearance, but the betrayal she underwent in order to become the Broodmother. Hydra, the Body Weapon. Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master. Hydra the Body Weapon is the third boss of Shinobi 3, and is a hideously grotesque abomination which is the result of hundreds of failed experiments dumped into the sewers. As the player descends into the rotting sewer system, the Hydra is alerted to your presence and stalks the player in an attempt to ambush you. The combination of all previous experiments compiled into one creature has improved its overall performance, able to launch balls of flesh from its head and shoot lasers from its mouth with precision. With each succeeding hit from the player, the lifeform uses its hands to defend itself down the narrow passage. Its only true defense is submerging itself in the raw sludge temporarily, before resurfacing to launch a counterattack. The fight may not be too difficult, but the impact it leaves will last for a long time to come.
Carcass, Cry of Fear. After the sudden suicide of his close friend Sophie before his very eyes, Simon's grief at her demise and her rejection of his feelings toward her summoned the Carcass, a writhing nimbus human form of rotting meat. It hovers in the air around the rooftop where it is encountered, locked tightly in a chair, with its only means of movement being the 6 chains around its frame. The terrifying manifestation is actually quite faster than it appears, and is able to throw ghastly human heads wrapped in bandages that home in on the player, making them hard to avoid. Expect a difficult fight on your hands. Once its health has been drained, Carcass will fall from the sky into the darkness below without a trace. Carcass's boss battle plays an important role in determining the ending of Cry of Fear.
Giant Atlantean Tomb Raider. The final result of Naltia's genetic engineering experiments. The giant Atlantean reveals itself in the Atlantean Pyramid's main chamber. After hatching from its egg, the legless mutant begins attacking larvae by any means necessary. Its half-body is skeptical with only red flesh and muscle to give it any weight. A round head is supported by its spiny neck, but its main power comes from its arms. Whilst its only means for movement, they can also pick up Laura and deal heavy damage by smashing her into the floor. Its large body in comparison into the small arena makes it difficult for the player to not fall to their death whilst avoiding attacks. The only real strategy here is to dodge the hands and shoot the boss until it explodes into chunks of Atlantean flesh and bones.
God, Silent Hill 3. God is the ultimate boss of Silent Hill 3. Passed from Heather to Claudia at the game's finale. It is a deity whose meaning has been abused by cultists for hundreds of years, but is said to bring about the end of humanity's evil, sins, pain, and suffering. Her appearance is that of Heather's true identity, a lesser Gillespie. Her face is made of cracked porcelain, an expression of sweet content, but her body is disfigured with her abdomen and legs showing but bones, cut off at the knees. When engaging you, God falls down on all fours and swipes at you, an attack that covers most of the arena. But don't think giving her a wide berth will help you, as she can summon flames to hurt you at a distance. Stick close and hit her with melee or firearm blasts to the head. And once defeated, prepare for either the good or bad ending of Silent Hill 3. Andros, Star Fox 64 3D. To finally free the Lyet system from evil and avenge the death of his father, Fox McCloud must face the tyrannical madman Andros, or at least what little of him is left. His dangerous experiments have transformed the once revered scientist into nothing more than a giant floating head and hands. But his lack of a body doesn't diminish the threat he poses. Andros lunges at the Arwing with frightening speed. His hands swat the air, making for a deadly obstacle to avoid, as well as conjure lightning to throw at the player. He is also able to inhale your ship should you get too close, and expel dozens of meteorites that can badly damage you. Stunning him by firing at his eyes will give you a chance to destroy the hands as his main source of offense, limiting his moves. Focusing all fire on the head will eventually cause Andros to panic and explode. But if you thought the horror was over, it cannot prepare you for his second phase. A frightening sight emerges from the flames. Andros' giant brain and eyes are all that remain of his former self. The eyes detach themselves and fly around the arena to catch Fox in their electric beam. Once taken care of, the last remaining vice is the brain itself. However, it is very stealthy when giving chase, able to outmatch even the Arwing in speed and movement, and may wind up catching Fox in the deadly tendrils hanging beneath it. It has the ability to teleport as well, so keep an eye on your map for its location. To weaken it, aim for the lobes on its rear, and even after all he has achieved, even the mighty must fall.
Nihilinth, Half-Life. The Nihilinth is the end boss in Half-Life, and is the supreme commander of the Zen. It looks like an oddly formed human fetus, and carries an enormous head atop a smaller body, connected by a supporting cord welded directly into its spine. Its arms are gangly, and it appears malnourished. The Nihilinth uses a levitating apparatus because of its apparent inability to walk, possibly due to its bizarre body shape. The player must avoid a barrage of two kinds of energy sphere projectiles. The rarer form of its attack is the green orb, which transports the player into various enemy ambushes. This attack is slower moving than its counterpart, the blue orbs that simply cause heavy damage upon impact. Golden orbs circle the Nihilinth's head, making it immune to the player's attacks until they are destroyed. This is accomplished by breaking the similarly colored crystals around the area. When the player successfully shatters the orbs, the Nihilinth's head will open, exposing its brain. When enough damage can be caused, the Nihilinth will ascend and explode. The Destroyer, Borderlands. The Destroyer is a massive, disgusting being from another dimension, and the final boss in Borderlands. It appears as a huge, one-eyed beast with a mouth and several tentacles. The Destroyer takes many hits to beat, so its vital players have all extra ammunition upgrades before battling. The Destroyer is deadly up close, and a player should be careful of the tentacle attacks, since they pound into the ground, creating powerful shockwaves. While the tentacles can be destroyed, they can grow back, so the main target is firing at the eye. When the Destroyer takes more damage, it sprouts more tentacles, and will start firing a dangerous eye beam. If the player can survive this onslaught and continues doing damage to the Destroyer, it will go back into the vault from whence it came. Beelzebub, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. In the reverse castle's necromancy laboratory hangs the giant, decaying corpse of Beelzebub, held by vast hooks that pierce his leathery green skin and held together by the threads of flesh he has remaining. An optional boss encounter, attacking him directly is no issue since he has no physical means of attack. However, he puts his reputation as Lord of the Flies to work and directs the engorged beastly flies that feast on his corpse to attack, possessed by his flesh. The more of him you lop off, the more desperate and organized they become, flying in formation patterns and becoming more agile. They encircle their master's remains, protecting him from your attacks, then dive-bombing you from above. Their swarm can overwhelm the player, and becomes especially tricky to get above in order to cut down the boss's upper body limbs. But after much dodging about, Beelzebub's head will fall and burst into flames, along with his winged minions.
William Birkin's final form, Resident Evil 2. William Birkin, virologist for the Umbrella Corporation, researcher of the G virus, creator of the T virus, and the main antagonist of Resident Evil 2. Given no choice when fatally wounded, Birkin dosed himself with the experimental G virus and began to mutate into the creature only known as G. As well as his already vast intelligence, G now possesses near-immortal regenerative abilities, an ability to implant spawn embryos to mutate his victims as well as evolve over time as he takes damage, making him tougher, stronger, and even more twisted in appearance. This brings us to Birkin's fifth and final form. A large, inhuman mass with two giant swiveling eyes, 4 tentacles protruding from its sides with claws at the ends, and a deep, wide mouth filled with hundreds of razor-sharp teeth. It's very slow when it's mobile, finding it difficult to move without the use of its arms pulling it from place to place. The tentacles also act as a main form of defiance, either whipping the player or hurling rubble at them. It can also spew limbs and body parts of digested humans and zombies, as well as extend its jaws in an attempt to eat the player whole. All you can do while being relentlessly chased by this horror is shoot it as much as possible until it finally gives in to the pain. But as the end comes, a glimmer of humanity flashes through the former William Birkin before he is blown to hell.
Giant Nazi zombie fetus. South Park, the stick of truth. The giant Nazi zombie fetus is the most disturbing boss of South Park's Stick of Truth. Players encounter it in the Unplanned Parenthood section of the game. It breaks through a wall and kills 2 security officials. It's basically a giant grey fetus with a Nazi armband on its arm. It comes with a giant umbilical cord that aids it in battle, stealing health from the player and giving health to the fetus. Wearing the doctor's outfit actually helps out a lot with this battle, since it provides bonuses when attacking and defending. The giant fetus is rather difficult, since it can heal itself and do heavy damage through projectile vomit and ground pounds. Players should attack the umbilical cord first, and then the fetus, but the umbilical cord can come back to life if the battle exceeds a certain time. After the fetus is dead, the player can slice its head open, and your companion will note how controversial it is.
Well, that's not cool, dude. Even I know that. You've pushed the envelope a little too far this time.
Great Mighty Pooh conquers bad for a day. When warned at the entrance of Pooh Mountain that something really bad resides inside, nothing prepares you for the steaming pile of dung that is the Great Mighty Pooh. After supplying him with enough sweet corn for his lovely grin, the opera-singing mass rises from his sludge pool and begins a rendition of the self-titled Slorprano. After each verse, the player must avoid globs of his own stool whilst throwing a roll of toilet paper into his mouth to wipe away the horrible sound coming from it. Landing a successful hit irritates the Great Mighty Pooh, increasing the tempo of his singing. When his fecalness can hold on no longer, he lets out one final operatic note that shatters the glass around the switch that will end the confrontation, flushing him into the abyss. The last thing you hear from him as he swirls down the bowl is an off-color reference to the Wicked Witch's melting monologue from The Wizard of Oz. If you want the true, full, and uncensored experience, play the Nintendo 64 version of Conker's Bad Fur Day. To this day, the Great Mighty Pooh has touched gaming community in a way that nobody can wash off.
Now that's what I call a bowel movement.
Legion, Castlevania Curse of Darkness. Originating from the biblical tale, The Exorcism of the Gerasene demonic, where Jesus exorcised a man possessed with the souls of over 2,000 demons who then drowned themselves in a lake. The Legion boss is the first stage of an entire battle. It is often a preference to another entity within, but the appearance of Legion is disturbing in its own right. A dense sphere of writhing humanoid figures, a sea of flesh that defends its core at all costs, to the point where the individual entities will attack the player directly if broken from the herd. In Curse of Darkness, the sphere descends a spiral tower as the player repeatedly strikes the Legion, the only method of defeating this ghastly swarm. It can spawn entities nearby that will damage the player by detonating themselves in their proximity. The constant rain of body parts from the hovering orb makes for a startling sight, but beware that the further you get to the core, the more Legion creatures you will have to face on the ground. Once diminished, it will reveal its core, which for this game is a towering being of white light called Nucleus. Born from the heart of Legion, this boss is very difficult, although optional. Nucleus attacks are light-based, contrary to Legion's dark abilities, but together make one of the most unnerving and tough boss fights in the entire Castlevania series. Carla, Resident Evil 6. Once a child prodigy, Carla Rodimus was a highly talented scientist who was driven into insanity and led to believe she was Ada Wong. Before your encounter, Carla morphs into a grotesque white-gray gelatinous substance and slowly takes over the ship that you fight her on. Carla is not easily defeated, as she can heal any damage that the player inflicts in a matter of seconds. The huge form can also produce spores, which are incredibly slow, but may cause damage if ignored for too long. The player must continue their assault until a hole appears in Carla's alien body. The terrifying creature will not even retaliate unless the player shoots its face. When this occurs, Carla's eyes swell and glow red until they spew a black liquid that hurts Ada. Once enough of an opening is made on Carla's face, Ada can step through the mass and blow up the liquid nitrogen tanks in the room, finally putting an end to this tragic creature's life.
You tried so hard to destroy the world. Now you've destroyed your body. Hope this is what you wanted.
Mary, Silent Hill 2, the final boss of the Maria ending of Silent Hill 2 is a mutated version of Mary, James Sunderland's deceased wife. Unlike the Maria boss, in the alternate paths, Mary appears in the Otherworld Lakeview Hotel and condemns James for murdering her whilst battling with a cancer that was warping her mind. She transforms into a shape not unlike the formerly encountered flesh-lipped creatures, suspended upside down in a metal frame. Mary shrieks and twitches in a corpse-like state, sending swarms of flesh-eating moths to attack you at a distance. When up close, her tentacles will wrap themselves around your throat in an attempt to suffocate you just like you did to her. Mary is tough, despite her appearance, so use everything in your arsenal to bring her crashing to the ground.
Human Reaper, Mass Effect 2. Reapers created by a race known as the Collectors by breaking down the organic elements of each species and using them to construct a mechanical abomination in that race's image. One being for one Reaper. However, the Human Reaper hybrid is something wholly different. Outstanding in size, despite being only half completed, it is inactive when discovered by Commander Shepard and his team. But after an encounter with enemy forces, it is decided to destroy the husk. After destroying the fueling pipes that carry the genetic material that constructed the Reaper, it seemingly falls down into the pit to its demise. But it is soon reactivated and scales the walls to begin its attack. It can charge up a blast that fires multiple energy balls over a wide spread and is capable of knocking the arena platform. This may put the player off balance and see them falling over the side to their death. Since its armor is literally impenetrable, the player must aim for the highlighted weak points in its design, the Reaper's eyes, mouth, and chest. Once sufficiently damaged, it will begin to break down into a smoldering heap of metal, but not before collapsing on the support platform and putting you and your team in mortal peril.
Zero-Two, Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards. Bearing a striking resemblance to its predecessor Zero, the form antagonist controlling the dark matter forces, Zero-Two, or Zero Squared, is the true final boss of Kirby 64. Only accessible after collecting all 74 shards, once you encounter Zero-Two, the only way out is to beat it. When first appearing, it has a face that appears to be smiling, but morphs into a deep red eye and spreads its newly acquired angel wings. Avoid the fiery explosions Zero-Two summons and focus your shard fire on the eye to stagger it. The halo is shown hovering above its head. As it is continuously hit, it changes color and disappears, revealing a band-aid covering its scalp. When struck, a green spiny tail produced from its misshapen base, the weak point of this boss. Attack here to deal your first true damage to this boss, but be careful of the green gas clouds it produces from this area, as they can really diminish your health. Weakening the angel wings while staggered is also a good strategy, as it will reduce Zero-Two's mobility and give you a significant advantage. When defeated, Zero-Two radiates a white light that engulfs the dark matter forces, annihilating them and their plans for the foreseeable future. The graphical blood clouds that burst from Zero-Two's eyes when struck make this battle one of the most disturbing of the Kirby franchise, and has been imprinted on the minds of fans for a generation.
Super Dementio, Super Paper Mario. As the events of Super Paper Mario unfold, and it becomes clear that the party has been manipulated into acquiring the Chaos Heart, Dementio makes his reveal that he has been pulling the strings, using Luigi as his plan to do his bidding. He fuses the Green Brother with the Chaos Heart, then takes control of his mutated form by hopping inside its mouth. This monstrosity is Super Dementio, a large shadow creature with Luigi's head and shoes, two white misshapen fists, clownish ruffles, and crosses linking his body to its limbs. While invincible at first, the power of the Pure Hearts remove Dementio's invulnerability and restore your abilities, allowing you to fight him. He is still a tough boss to take down, and his moves are many and varied, such as punching, jumping, even the platforms that you must utilize to bounce on Dementio's head work against you, each bearing facial expressions similar to his original form. They will lock onto the play and fire tiny projectiles to knock you back down. Once defeated, Super Dementio erupts, causing the Luigi head to fall off. After his final words, the head explodes, launching the real Luigi to safety. Slappy, Dead Rising 2. Slappy was a mascot for a children's clothing store, his appearance like a young boy in traditional schoolboy attire with a propeller hat. His costume mask has a huge smile on his face, making for quite an eerie appearance. When first encountered, Slappy asks if he can fix things, thinking he is simply troubled by the recent events. He makes the offer to have the teenager come with him to the safe house. However, it is at this point that Brent becomes hostile. Brent was driven insane by the fact that his date, Lewis Jameson was killed during the first wave of the zombie outbreak. He now hunts through Fortune City as Slappy to find who caused the outbreak and avenge his lost love. Slappy's attacks are fire-based, and he uses a flamethrower and a fire spitter in order to perform his fire spin attacks. The player will find that guns will do very little damage to Slappy, and it is far easier to use a melee-based attack plan in order to defeat him. At the conclusion of the battle, he moves to the corpse of Luis and seems to pass away, but bolts up and shouts,
"Don't worry, kids! To Slappy!
before finally dying.
Piggsy. Manhunt. This frightening, chainsaw-wielding madman is the third main enemy of Manhunt. His patchwork appearance, part man, part pig, makes him a terrifying encounter on the Starkweather estate. What few words his childlike mind is capable of producing are matched by his animalistic squeals and grunts. The true terror in being stalked by this cannibalistic murderer is that in order to complete this section of the snuff film montage, you must kill Piggsy by getting close and stabbing him 3 times. Alerting him to your presence will cause him to maniacally pursue you while snarling and squealing. After gaining access to the mansion's upper level, Piggsy will fall through a loose grate on the floor, thus securing your victory.
Omega Flowey, Undertale. The player encounters Omega Flowey after they defeat Asgore at the end of the regular neutral route in Undertale, which allows Flowey to steal the 6 human souls and mutate himself into a photoshopped amalgamation of disfigured plant, human, and mechanical parts. His arms become bramble-like appendages, his face becomes a TV screen that shows a mangled version of himself and a convulsing, startling face. He has a reverse mouth below his TV screen face, and 6 metal tubes around his eyes and mouth that represent the 6 souls Omega Flowey has absorbed. As the fight begins, Omega Flowey will use a wide array of bullet hell styled attacks in order to lower the player's HP until different sequences with each of these 6 souls begins, where they will heal the player after they dodge Flowey's attacks for long enough. If the player dies during the fight, Flowey will mimic Asgore's message, and then fill the screen with laughter and revive you so he can toy with you until you either defeat him or become stuck in an endless loop of death. Once defeated, he will load a save file where he has full health and kill the player over and over until the souls intervene and save you from his sadistic torment.
The Dead Hand. Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Deep within the Shadow Temple's well resides one of the most disturbing bosses in the entire Legend of Zelda series. A pale, decaying mass covered in raw patches of flesh. Dead Hand is already a disturbing sight to behold. Its open mouth appears to be in the shape of a perpetual grin, and his eyes are absent and dark. If it is able to extend its neck and bring it down to bite and wrench Link, while the stubby arms on its body are useless, many tall decaying hands that at first appeared harmless viciously grab and hold you in place, allowing Dead Hand to slither eerily towards you and attack. This is one method to lure Dead Hand out into the open to strike at its vulnerable face. The player can also cut down the arms around the arena, even though it isn't clear if they are part of the same entity. Their absence forces the boss to the surface in order to find you. It will topple over once weakened, letting out a hollow death groan and lay twitching on the ground.
Mother. Prototype. Due to an adverse reaction to the chemical blood tox, Elizabeth Green is forced to service in the hideous form of Mother. erupting from the ground in Times Square. Mother's physical being resembles a worm or a flower. It is 2 stories high, peaked by a pulsating bulb. Your aim is to attack the tendrils surrounding her body to expose its spine. This makes her collapse under the bulb's weight and leave it open to attack. The process will be repeated numerous times until she is finally defeated. Your main threats are the hunters she summons to protect her that you will have to fend off from time to time. Mother herself can produce powerful shockwaves and fire green projectiles that try to home in on the player. The main source of trouble will come from the tendrils as they grow even stronger with each return. Once the creature is beaten, it will vomit up Elizabeth onto the pavement where she will be at the ultimate mercy of Alex Mercer.
The Gaping Dragon from Dark Souls. The Gaping Dragon is an optional boss encountered near the Blight Town gate within the hall in the depths. The reasons for its disturbing nature are evident from its initial appearance. While it shares many traits with other dragons, the broad wings, hard shiny scales, long tail, and slightly underdeveloped head, the most notable feature that sets it apart from any other is the wide open ribcage that acts as a secondary jaw, supported by its 4 legs. If caught by the dragon's additional 2 front arms, it will thrust you inside its ribs and munch on you for a short period of time. Dozens of razor-sharp bones, causing great damage. While its wings may not sustain flight, they allow the Gaping Dragon to hover above you temporarily to reposition itself. Other attacks that it is capable of are a body slam, where it brings its chest crashing down above you, a swipe with its front arms, a stomp frenzy, a tail whip, and it even charges at the player. It can even produce a corrosive liquid over a wide radius that will damage your equipment if exposed for too long. Removing its tail rewards the player with the Dragon King Great Axe, as well as preventing it from using its tail whip move. Attack from the side wherever possible to bring this gloriously horrific beast down.
Giygas, Earthbound. When first seen, many interpret Giygas to be a representation of hell on Earth, but further analysis of this boss shows that it is something even more grotesque. According to the game's creator, Giygas represents a traumatic memory of him entering the wrong theater as a child and seeing a murder-rape scene. That trauma is Giygas. The battle against this boss is very long and difficult. It uses random and unintelligible attacks whilst babbling erratic and meaningless speech. No attack can even harm it. Giygas overwhelms the heroes until Paula calls out to the people of the earth to pray. Every time they do, Giygas is hurt and slowly transforms. As the face of Giygas begins to quiver and shake throughout the battle, the image becomes further corrupted along with the sinister music. Rumors and theories abound suggesting that Giygas is a fetus. This is backed up by Ness traveling back in time to face Giygas, and that one of the final images of Giygas' background resembles the outline of a baby. However, the theory has been disproven, since the creator explained that the similarity is simply a coincidence due to how Earthbound's backgrounds are generated. The other theory was that Giygas was a corrupted form of Giygas from Earthbound beginnings. If one were to flip the image upside down, it closely mirrors that of the aforementioned boss.
The Sepulchre, Silent Hill Homecoming. As is the case with every monster in Silent Hill, these horrible creatures are the manifestations of the fear, anger, and sorrow plaguing the people who enter the haunted town. The first boss of Silent Hill Homecoming is no exception. As Sam Bartlett carries the guilt of burying his son Joey alive beneath the Grand Hotel's garden to appease the town's cult, that guilt now brings to life the Sepulture, a twisted half-dead humanoid fused with the very garden it was buried in. Rising up from the mulch to smite its summoner, Sepulture will then turn on the player. It hangs ominously from the ceiling in the middle of the room, using its roots to hold its trunk of a torso by while the decaying upper body attacks with its long warped arms, striking out from a distance and bringing down rubble on top of your head. Getting up close is suicide. The only way to damage this creature is to destroy the sacks of red flesh that surround the chamber, causing it to fall from its perch and rely on its hands for mobility. Allowing it to grab you will result in an instant death if you are unsuccessful in freeing yourself. Your objective from here is to attack the arms to collapse the body, giving you a window of opportunity to unleash hell on the tumorous head. Upon defeat, it falls down into the deep dark abyss to be buried for good.
Amalgam Alpha, the evil within. Amalgam Alpha seems to be inspired by the U3 boss of Resident Evil 4. Both are large, powerful hybrids of various different creatures. It's the final consciousness of test subjects, combined into a single, horrific monster. Amalgam Alpha releases a purple smoke and can deliver a one-hit kill if the player is within reach. It's best to use the most powerful weapons in your inventory when tackling this boss, as the attacks it unleashes can be devastating. When the player has dealt significant damage to the boss, it will reveal its final weakness, its eye. After several attacks on the eye, Amalgam Alpha will be defeated.
The One Reborn from Bloodborne. The One Reborn is a boss found later in the game, deep within the Yaha-Ghul Unseen Village. The appearance of the One Reborn, descending through a pale blood moon's portal, is very reminiscent of Birth. The creature is a massive conglomeration of decaying corpses wrought together to form a terrible design. Its lower portion, a tangled mass of human limbs and a large humanoid torso protruding at its peak. It will swipe at the player with its long arm-like appendages, flail about and stomp the surrounding area, and attempt to headbutt you if you are fighting it from the building's second floor. Watch your surroundings, as the One Reborn is capable of shooting an acidic stream. It also launches energy attacks from its fingers, and is able to summon a shower of limbs from a sphere that appears above its torso. But its most damaging offensive move shrouds the arena in a reddish glow that you must avoid before the One Reborn cried out to activate it. Attacking it from the sides is a wise strategy, as it minimizes any damage you will ultimately take in this encounter. Once its health is depleted, the One Reborn will blast itself apart and dissolve in a black mist, leaving no trace behind.